Go into your work folder and open up a document called print.ai. If you've already worked through the movie on saving as a PDF, this is a similar, but it's a slightly different document. So you want to open this one up. We have been charged with working this through and communicating to all the hundreds of people that come to this party where it's going to be. We talked about that in the PDF movie, about making it as a PDF. Right now, this is called repurposing. We could also say, well, maybe I really do just want to make this as a GIF and put it into an attachment. Now, we've been through Save for Web, but let me show you this really quick. Go up to the word File and go down to Save for Web. In Save for Web, let me go ahead and fit that to the screen so we can see it. And let's change that into probably the JPEG format. And there you go. The problem with it is that the artboard itself is going to go along with the image, and we really don't want that. One of the options that you have in Save for Web is, if you don't want the whole artboard, which is all this stuff here, is you have a button right here, Clip. So we could do that, and boom, we've got it exactly the way we want it. And you want to maybe see it before you commit to maybe saving it as a JPEG or a GIF. And if you click this button down here for preview, now this one allows you to change the browser. If I'm not mistaken, and I usually am, I believe that Safari is the default in Illustrator if you're using Macintosh, and Explorer if you're using Windows. But if you click this button right down here, you can change that. You can make it anything you want. If you want to preview it, see what it's going to look like based on our options over here, click the preview button right here, and it will open it in your default web browser. So there you go. And you can see the tags if you're curious down here. Let's close that, and let's get out of here too. Okay, here's the deal. The powers that be have changed their minds again. That's why they're the powers that be. We gave them a PDF that was in another movie. We gave them a quick GIF right now, but now they want it printable. Say US measuring 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, stick it around town, and get as many people as we can to come. So we have to change it. Now, the one thing I like about Illustrator is the simple fact that if you're running native graphics here, which are vector, it shouldn't be that hard. I mean, it's going to be inconvenient. We have to make some changes, but it's doable. And that wouldn't be so doable if we were in, say, Adobe Photoshop, because in Photoshop, everything is resolution dependent. So the first thing we need to do here, I think, is change the artboard into a form of 8.5 by 11. So let's do that with this over here. This is the artboard tool. Now, if we select it, we can come over here and we can change any way we want to. Actually, let's do this too. Let's go to the word View and go down to our rulers right here and say Show. Change the measuring system to something that you're comfortable with. Now, I'm in the United States, although I do use centimeters. I use metrics actually more than I use the US way, but I'll go ahead and go to inches. You could go to pica if you're going out to a press. Double-click on the artboard tool rather than coming over here and playing around with it. So if we double-click it, it gives us the options up here, and all we have to do is, number one, go into our presets and choose one here, like letter, and come over here and say we want portrait. That's it. Click OK. Now let's double-click the hand tool. That'll get us down so we can see the whole thing. Let's make this bigger so it'll fit. Pick up the selection tool. Let's go ahead and grab everything. Hold down the Alt key and the Shift key. That's proportion and from center, and begin dragging it out. Let's take it to about there. So I like the edge against the white, but I think I want it a little bit taller this way and a little bit more down this way. So I'm going to go to this one right here. Now it's kind of hard to see the anchor with all that stuff there. Just watch for the double arrow. I'm going to hold the Alt key again and pull up and down this way. Maybe something about like that. Now we can change the stuff that's inside of it. Maybe rearrange it a little bit. And whatever you want to do. We're ready to print. We like what we've got, and because everything is vector, it's still going to look good. So I got the best of all the worlds here. Let's go up to the word File on the pull-down menu and go down to Print. This might look a little bit different on exactly what you see, but everything that's here you're going to have. So let's check it out. Number one, you can choose, for example, a print preset. Now we're on web, video, and mobile, which is a default. You can choose a different printer if you have more than one. In your general setup, how many copies do you want, assuming we're doing this on a really good high-end printer? If it has a lot of artboards, you want to collate, reverse the order. Do you want to use all your artboards? Well, we only have one, so that's no big deal. Do you want to ignore them or skip them if they're blank? I want my media defined by my driver, and my driver said 8.5 by 11, but you can change that if you want to. So that's overriding the driver. We can auto rotate. Now, if you look at the image over here, you can see what it's doing. You wouldn't do that. But you might do this or this. Now think of it this way. This might be more practical. When you do an envelope and you print it, obviously there's a flap on the envelope where you stick it in and then lick it and send it off. That flap sometimes, at least on my printers, if I put it, say, on the right as opposed to the left, it'll jam. So if this were, say, something like an envelope, I might actually want to print the address on it this way as opposed to that way, so I could orient the envelope in the printer the correct way so it wouldn't do that. So that's why you have that. We don't need to change that, of course. We have printing layers on visible, placement, scaling, if you want to scale the item. If we go into marks and bleeds, obviously we don't need any of this. It can be printed on a piece of paper. You don't want trim marks on it. Output itself, well, you've got things that deal with like CMYK, spot colors. We don't have any of that. As a matter of fact, most of this is grayed out anyway. In graphics, you have one major thing here, and that is flatness, quality versus speed. If you move that over to speed, you're reducing the number of anchor points in the image that create the shapes. And in doing so, reduces the math to print it. But it could change the shapes. I would only consider this if I ever had a problem. If the image was so complicated, had so many anchor points that I'm thinking, I better control this. But you know what? I would rather control it in Illustrator than do it here anyway. So I usually don't play too much around with that one. You've got color management. I would suggest that you let Illustrator determine the colors. And the best one of these profiles actually to use, I think, is sRGB. I think it works great. Relative colorimetric does its best to preserve the original colors in the image. In most cases, for what we do, that's probably the one you want to use. You do have some advanced settings here on overprints and things like that. We don't have to worry about any of this. If we go back to General, you've got it all set up. Now, you do have two buttons down here. You have one for Page and Setup down here. If you click it, it's going to warn you that you've already done it up here. Why do you feel you need to go into the operating system to do this? So you can say, oh, okay, you're right, I don't want to do that. If you do Setup, it's going to do the same thing. But let me show you what it is. What's your operating system print dialog box? I'm not saying you don't use this. I'm saying there's really no need. Everything is right here for you. We're done. Now, if you want to print it, you click here and it'll print it. But if you click Done, what it does is it more or less saves these settings for you. If you open it up again, they'll be there. However, if you do click this button right here, you can actually save this as a preset and give it a name, and the next time you need it, it would be right up here. Printing has never really been a very difficult thing, to be honest with you. But some of the settings that we've talked about can really help you. And as a matter of fact, the most difficult thing we did in this entire movie, this lesson, was set up our artboard to 8.5 by 11 and expand the document because we had to, because of the powers that be, repurpose the document. On to the next.